everyone, welcome back to another video, and today we finally have another episode of our classical painting redraw series. And first and foremost, I want to apologize because I realized while making this video that the last episode I posted of this series was back in March of 2023, which is over a year and a half ago, and all I can say is that I've been really busy with other projects that have kept me from making these videos, because these videos do take quite a lot of time to make on account of doing the redraw and then doing the research and all that jazz. But I'm really excited. I am doing a new painting today, and I actually asked my patrons over on Patreon to pick today's painting because I was kind of torn between 3 different ones, and everyone over there voted for The Kiss by Gustav Klimt. So that is the one I'm going to be doing today. And also I'm going to be giving you an art history lesson about the painting itself, the original, and of course the painter Gustav Klimt. So yeah, I hope you enjoy, and let's get right into the painting. Like I said, today I'm going to be redrawing the famous Gustav Klimt painting, The Kiss. And for a change in the series, this episode I will actually be painting this traditionally. I feel like it's been a long time coming in this series for me to actually do a redraw on paper, but to be honest, a lot of the paintings I've done in this series in the past were so complicated and full of different elements and backgrounds that just in terms of time, it was easier and more efficient for me to do them digitally. But with this painting, I really wanted to capture all the painting textures and patterns that Klimt incorporated in the original, and since it was a fairly simple composition, I decided to whack out the paints. But before that, I wanted to have a good foundation sketch, so I did that on my iPad digitally first, using the original painting as reference, side by side, so I could replicate it in my style. And while I'm doing that, I thought I would take the time to talk to you about today's sponsors. Today's video is brought to you by Ana Luisa Jewelry. You all know that I love Ana Luisa's jewelry, mission, and ethos, and they are a continuous supporter of the channel. Today is no exception. Ana Luisa is a carbon-neutral jewelry brand that creates sustainably crafted pieces, ensuring luxury is achieved without excess waste and mass production. They're very adamant about sustainability and transparency within the jewelry industry. They release limited batches of their products every week to minimize waste, and they only use recycled materials in the manufacturing process. Plus, all their diamonds are lab-grown, so no mining is required. Ana Luisa pieces have unmatched quality, long-lasting, hypoallergenic, water-resistant, and sustainable, and I can attest to that because I have some of their pieces that I've been wearing and had for years now. Some of these pieces I shower with, I sleep with, and they still look brand spanking new, like the day I first got them. And you too can elevate your style without breaking the budget. Designs start at just $39, and the more you buy, the more you save. Recently, I got these gorgeous Laney marble blue 14 karat gold huggy earrings that are actually a part of one of my favorite collections of Ana Luisa's. These beautiful blue marble pieces that remind me so much of Portuguese tiles from back home. And I also got this beautiful initial letter pendant necklace with the letter T because... No, Gabriella. T for Tom. T is in Troy. My lovely partner of 3 years. It's such a beautiful, subtle pendant necklace that still keeps my darling close to me at all times. Pretty much 90% of my jewelry now is just Ana Luisa, like at this point. And if you've had an eye on some of these pieces, then this is the perfect time to get them, because Ana Luisa is actually having their biggest sale of the year right now. It's also the perfect time to get some beautiful gifts for the holidays at unbeatable prices. You can save up to 30% off, so head over to the link in the description to get in on these deals. The sale is only on for a limited time, so make sure to take advantage of it while it's on. Thank you so much to Ana Luisa for sponsoring this video, so let's get back into the video, shall we? And once I was happy with the sketch, I printed it out and used it to trace the drawing onto my watercolor paper using a light box. Here I'm using a dark brown pencil from Arteza for the line art. I normally use a red pencil to do line art when working traditionally, but since this painting has a lot of yellows and browns and earthy tones throughout, I wanted to keep within that color scheme for the line art too. It was fairly simple to trace, and I just had to make sure that all the little details of the patterns and shapes on the clothing as well as the face details were correct. Since I'm going to be using gouache paint, which is quite thick and opaque, I wanted to have a reliable line art sketch underneath in a dark enough color that I could still see through a few layers. And once that was done, I used some masking tape to tape my paper to the desk to help with paper warping and to get a nice crisp border edge too, which will be super satisfying to watch at the end. To avoid ripping the paper when I remove the tape later, I like to take off some of the stickiness of the tape with my hands first before laying it down. Then it was finally time to start adding color. I am using my Himi gouache paints today for this painting, which I had to severely reactivate since they haven't been used in months and were very, very dry and crumbly. But I had a pot of water and a spray bottle right next to me to keep wetting them until they were reactivated. And while I start adding the first few layers of paint to the background, I think it's time to begin talking about Mr. Gustav Klimt himself and his works. So let's get into it. Gustav Klimt was an Austrian symbolist painter who was born July 14th, 1862 in Baumgarten near Vienna. As per usual, apologies in advance for any incorrect pronunciations. I am not Austrian, so yeah, apologies. He was the second of 7 children, of whom 3 actually displayed artistic talents early on, which I found quite interesting. Klimt's father was a gold engraver, and his mother always dreamed of being a musical performer, and of course his 3 talented artist brothers. I guess one could argue that creativity ran in the family. Unfortunately, the Klimts did live in poverty for most of Gustav's childhood, but at the age of 14, he was enrolled in the Vienna School of Arts and Crafts, which is pronounced Kunstgewerbe. I'm gonna have to get someone to pronounce this for me.
Kunstgewerbeschule.
That's where he was, and that is where he studied until 1883, until he was 21 years of age. At this school, he received training as an architectural painter, and his brother, Ernst, was also enrolled in the school. The 2 brothers and their friend Franz Matsch all began working together, and this collaboration trio worked quite well together, as by 1880 they had received numerous commissions. They called their studio the Company of Artists, but as we all know, 3 years later, Klimt finished his studies as an architectural painter and began his professional career shortly after. He painted interior murals and ceilings in public buildings on the Ringstraße. One of his best-known murals from this time was a series of, quote, allegories and emblems. He did so well in his first few years that in 1888, Klimt was awarded the Golden Order of Merit from the Emperor Franz Joseph I of Austria for his contributions to the world of art, and even became an honorary member of the University of Munich and the University of Vienna. So he was doing pretty well for himself. Unfortunately, his luck did run out, as in 1892, both his father and brother Ernst died, meaning Gustav had to take on the financial responsibilities of his own family and his brother's family as well. And this tragedy hit him really hard, and it put a huge strain on Klimt's creativity, which ended up shifting his entire personal artistic style. But then, in the early 1890s, Klimt met his forever partner, Emily Floge. Good lord. Flöge. Emily Flöge, whom he fathered 14 children with. But back to his art now. In 1897, Klimt became one of the founding members and co-president of the Wiener Secession, the Vienna Secession, which was a group that aimed to provide exhibitions for unconventional young artists in order to give them a platform and bring these foreign artists to Vienna. This group was composed of Klimt, of course, and about 40 other Viennese artists who had all recently resigned from the Academy of Arts in a collaborative demonstration of opposition against the conservative Austrian artistic establishment at the time. Basically, Klimt and all these other artists were really upset with how conservative and oppressive the Austrian artistic establishment was at the time, so they all resigned and created their own little group so that they could create what they actually wanted to create. And amongst these artists was actually Egon Schiele, who is another artist that I studied back in high school, and I might do an episode on him at some point. Who knows? But I thought that was really interesting that their paths crossed like this. This group's symbol was Pallas Athena, the Greek goddess of justice, wisdom, and arts, and Klimt even went on to paint his, quote, radical version of her in 1898. Klimt eventually broke ties with this organization, however, due to some creative disagreements, let's say. But yeah, at this time there was a theme emerging from Klimt's works. He was being labelled by critics as radical or even pornographic. By the turn of the century, Klimt had, quote, transformed traditional allegory and symbolism into a new language, which was more overtly sexual and hence more disturbing, end quote. And this is from klimtgallery.org. And of course, all the links to all the sources that I used for my research will be in the description box if you'd like to read up more on him. But it wasn't just critics who abhorred his paintings. In fact, most of the public agreed, political, aesthetic, and religious views alike. Of course, due to this, Gustav had some issues with commissions. His recently commissioned paintings for the ceiling of the Great Hall of University of Vienna were never displayed, actually, and this would also mark Klimt's last public commission that he accepted. So, all three of those commissioned paintings, which were called Philosophy, Medicine, and Jurisprudescence, were later destroyed by SS forces in 1945, so we no longer have them. Klimt utilized mythology and allegory to disguise the erotic nature of his works. His paintings and drawings would often portray a sexual, objectified interest in women, and he actually had mostly sex workers pose for him erotically for his paintings. In the early 20th century, Klimt developed his very well-known golden phase, during which this painting, The Kiss, was created. And in this period, he predominantly used gold leaf in his works, something he experimented actually back when he painted the Pallas Athena symbol for his artist exhibition group earlier. Klimt's life eventually became simple and honestly kind of a mood. KlimtGallery.org says that while he worked at home, quote, Klimt normally wore sandals and a long robe with no undergarments. His simple life was somewhat cloistered, devoted to his art and family, and little except the secessionist movement, and he avoided cafe society and other artists socially. Which made me laugh when I was reading this because, dude really did not want to hang out with other people. He just wanted to sit at home in his robe and paint. And isn't that just the life? But actually his fame was such at this time that he could afford to do this, and he could also afford to be picky with his donors and commissions that came directly to him. Unfortunately, in 1915, at just 53 years of age, Klimt passed away from a stroke and pneumonia, leaving numerous paintings left unfinished. His posthumous success has marked some record prices for individual works of art. Klimt's Landhaus am Attersee painting sold for a whopping $29 million. Apple Tree 1 was sold for $33 million, and Birch Forest sold for $40.3 million. So, his body of work sticks out from the rest, not just by his use of gold and colorful decorations, but upon closer inspection, his constant use of phallic shapes, often concealing the erotic nature that most of his paintings portrayed. They also typically would feature a dominant woman, a femme fatale, as a main theme. Klimt himself has been quoted saying, quote, all art is erotic. And of course this can be seen in works like Judith I, and of course The Kiss. And now we should probably get into the painting itself, The Kiss, which is probably the most popular work by Gustav Klimt. I'm sure many of us agree that we've seen this painting at least once in our lives. And this painting was first exhibited in 1903 at the Kunstschau exhibition. It is approximately 6 by 6 feet canvas oil painting with embellishments, of course, of gold leaf, silver, and platinum. If you remember, Klimt painted this piece at a moment of turmoil in his career. He was being faced with backlash from the public about the lewd nature of his works, and during that whole debacle with the 3 paintings from the University of Vienna that were destroyed, he had just left the Secession, the organization that he co-founded with the other artists, and he then decided to set up the Kunstschau exhibition, where he debuted this painting. This movement was met with expected criticism, which eventually ended the exhibition in financial disaster. But the painting, The Kiss, garnered so much interest and success that the Viennese government actually bought the piece before the exhibition had even ended. So, good things happening. The Kiss shows a couple embracing under a large golden cloak that completely encircles them. The male subject depicts a repeating geometric cluster of black and white shapes, which some critics say symbolizes his strength, virility, and masculinity.
This is directly contrasted by the female subject adorning flowers and circular shapes that are typically used to reference femininity and maternity. And this symbolism is used a lot in art throughout the ages, shapes such as squares and rectangles, things with very harsh right angles and edges, usually used to depict masculinity, and then more curved, soft, circular shapes are usually used to depict femininity. The couple can be seen, quote, giving into their desires, end quote, completely unfazed by their surroundings, time, or reality. At first glance, it might look like the man is completely dominating the lady, but then you realize that she's actually kneeling down and she's still at his height. So you realize that if she were to stand up, she would be much, much bigger than the man and in fact dominating him. People suggest that the painting reflects Klimt's love and passion for his lifelong partner, Emily, or even the many women he found himself in relationships with. Klimt had many lovers throughout his life. His personal relationships were always a point of speculation, and he was also not shy about depicting his erotic desires in his paintings. There's a lot of symbolism packed in the painting, which is not unlike Klimt. Like many of his works, the male subject's face is completely obscured, and the painting instead focuses on the female subject. It perfectly shows her expression of bliss and delight. Like I mentioned before, the man seems to be domineering and intrusive in his pose, but looking at the way he's holding her face and his hands, you can see the love and the tenderness that Klimt decided to depict instead. All the while, the couple is standing near an abyss, as if to be about to carelessly fall away together, wrapped up in each other's love, unencumbered and completely lost in their love for each other. So overall, I think it's a beautiful painting and a beautiful love letter from Klimt to whomever, whether it be his wife or his many lovers. And it does emote a very beautiful, raw and encompassing type of love. All the colors and the shapes and just the eruption of, nature blooming around them all adds into this tenderness that people usually get from the painting. And yeah, there was not much writing done by Klimt or about Klimt directly, but in a rare piece of writing called Commentary on a Non-Existent Self-Portrait, Klimt states, quote, "I have never painted a self-portrait. I am less interested in myself as a subject for a painting than I am in other people, above all, women. There's nothing special about me. I am a painter who paints day after day from morning to night. Whoever wants to know something about me ought to look carefully at my pictures." Which I think is pretty cool. You're just a dude, you love to paint, and that's it. That's the story of Gustav Klimt and his painting The Kiss. He was just a very artistic person who did not find it nice to have himself censored by any artistic movements or any groups, and he would often go against the current just to continue creating what he wanted to create. And now we can actually get back into my redrawing of this painting. As you can see, I tried to stick really close with not only the composition, but the colors and just the overall textures that Klimt used, because since I was using a traditional medium, I thought I might as well use that as an advantage. I obviously wanted to keep all the symbolism and the shapes that he used correctly and kind of just inject a little bit of my style wherever I could, like in the faces and the rendering. I think it was a really fun project just because this painting is so beyond my personal art style and my way of drawing and anything that I would usually paint, that it was just a really interesting exercise to see how much of myself I could put into this painting and still enjoy myself, obviously. As you can see here, I'm just using that pencil that I use for the line art to go over some of these lines and patterns that might have gotten obscured by paint, and just using that dark color to bring them back into the foreground. As you can see in the background, I tried to use a flat brush to get some of those like squarish rectangle patterns that you can kind of see in the original painting. There's literally so many shapes and little patterns injected into every bit of this painting. In retrospect, I'm also sad that I didn't actually use any gold foil in this painting, because I do have gold foil. I just thought that I'd really liked all the patterns and things that I had managed to put into this painting, and I didn't really want to obscure any of it with gold foil, but maybe when I do a print version of this painting to sell on my shop, I'll add some gold foil on there because it looks too good. And this is my redrawing of Gustav's Klimt The Kiss. Let me know what you think of my redrawing, if you would have done anything differently. I hope you enjoyed learning about Gustav Klimt's life and his works and his art.
So yeah, that was it for today's video. I really hope you enjoyed. I hope that you learned something new, either about the Kiss or Gustav Klimt. I hope you enjoyed the redraw. Let me know what you thought of it. And again, if you have any requests for this series, please don't hesitate to leave them down in the comments. I have a huge list that I keep adding to with your lovely requests. So yeah, if you have a painting that you'd like me to add to it, let me know. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you have a lovely rest of your day. And I'll see you in my next video. Bye-bye.